I do have some events coming up that I'd like to invite you to. So we are doing something special out at Arrowhead on Wednesday, so the 20th. The Fort Wayne Astronomical Society is coming out to do a little star party. So it starts at 8, it's from 8 to 10. They're gonna bring out their telescopes and they're gonna show us Saturn. They're gonna show us how their telescopes work and talk a little bit about the night sky. So come do some stargazing with us out at Arrowhead. We don't do too many programs out there. I heard that the stars should be nice. We do have not a rain date. We have a cloud date. So if it'll be moved to October if the clouds are covering up the stars. So, like I said, that will be September 20th from 8 to 10. And then we have short hikes for short legs also on the 20th. That's in the morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's for ages 3 to 5, but it's geared for ages 3 to 5. Some people bring older siblings, some people bring younger siblings. It's totally all right. We're doing nature art, so that will be fun. And the library will be out, they'll read a story. And then we also have our Ramblers. The Ramblers right now are at, what do we got? They are at Arrowhead. They're at Arrowhead right now, so you can get a big dose of Arrowhead this month as well. So Ramblers hike every Tuesday from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. So be sure to head out there. They usually meet, parking is usually over at Arrowhead Prairie. I'm not sure if they're hiking the marsh or the prairie. They'll do both probably. But be sure to come out on every Tuesday, meet out at Arrowhead. The last Tuesday of the month, they will be at Buttonbush Bottoms though. So be sure to check out that one. All right. Sorry, we also have, where'd it go? Volunteering will be next month, to the first Wednesday in October. So join us at Hop River for that program. And then also, next month for our Breakfast on the Marsh program, we have Philip Anderson with the, will be presenting Upstream, Downstream, Sharing the Watershed. He is a part of the Unearthed Speakers Bureau program, so we got a grant through the Indiana Humanities to put on this. So he's gonna put on a great presentation in October, and that will be October 12th. So please be sure to come out to that one as well. So, without further ado, you all know this man, I feel like. So, I don't have much of an introduction, but he is our artist in residence. He started last Tuesday, and he'll be here through Friday. So, he has many other pieces that you can come check out at the barn. So, please be sure to come out and check him out as he's working on his pieces. So, if you could give Doc Wiedman a warm welcome, that would be great.
You don't need it. This is going to be a little bit different because if you've been doing Breakfast on the Marsh for a long time, you'll know that this is like my 5th or 6th of them. And this one's a bit different because Allie and Amy asked me when COVID, everybody was sheltering in place, and they wanted to start the Breakfast on the Marsh program again. So we were going to try to do a Zoom one, and so that people could come, and I know a couple of you were there. We did it at the barn, and then we did it so that the people, it was a great day, but people were all socially distanced, in clusters, if you remember. Yeah, and it was incredibly well received. I couldn't believe how many people were both Zooming and also present in person. But I gave a talk about my carvings, okay? That's the first time I've ever given a talk to this group about that. And now here I am back as the artist in residence, so of course I need to talk a little bit about my art. And my art is carving. But it's not a repeat of the previous talk. So as much as anything, I'm going to try to take you from where I was then to where I am sort of now, with just a little bit of a repetition. Oh, and you wanted me to mic, so there it is. and I'll try to park my buns up here. Is there a remote, or are you gonna
I
advance
can
slides?
be your remote.
I love it.
I think our remote is buried in Monarch stuff. So, how would you like the lights?
So that they can see whatever's up on front. They don't need to see me. All right, is that good?
Yeah, it's good.
And did you want me to put one on for Zoom?
No, I can't get it to work right now. So,
All right.
just speak loud. I don't think you'll have a problem with that.
No, no. Can you all see I'm not in your way, right?
No, you're fine.
Okay, awesome. I don't like starting talks with disclaimers, but here's one. I put this talk together like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I have not seen it since then because I'm retired and I haven't touched a computer since coming down here. I'm happy to say that, but there may be a surprise or two because I'm going to turn and I have to look at the slides also, since I don't have a laptop in front of me with the next slide preview, which is what most times when you give talks, you can see what's coming up and, do that. I don't get that luxury today, but it's all right because I love spontaneity. So
More fun this way.
that, maybe. And if you all want to convince yourself of that, that's just great. So I called this part 2 because the first time I gave the talk at Eagle Marsh, it was with and against the grain. And that's a reference to 2 different things. First off, my art sometimes, although not terribly politically or provocative in any sort of way, people either like it or don't, and that's fine with me because I classify my own art as folk art. I'm not trained in art, although I've been carving for over 45 years, and I have a, pardon the French, but I have a kick-ass studio. It's really nice. And if you've kind of followed along, you may have even seen it. It's been featured twice on 21 Country. They've come out and did some filming on there. And if you like YouTube, you can even go see it on there. Let's go to the next one. I guess I just go beat, right? Okay, the kind of carver that I am. First off, if you were unaware, I am a wood sculptor. So I carve wood, and I do it what I always refer to as the old-fashioned way. I have a couple of gouges up here that you can see if you've not seen a gouge before and you want to see one. I also have my current mallet. It's made out of lignum vitum, which is one of the hardest woods that you can find. I have others that are made out of local wood, like Osage orange, which are pretty darn hard. But hefted if you want. You can see it's a pretty good, I can get some pretty good wax with it. And that's what I've been using all out here, so you can see that. And I wanted to kind of to clarify, because wood carving is a form of subtractive sculpting, okay? It means you start out with something big and you end up with something less. And what you take off, or what you actually work on, never gets seen. It's on the floor when you're done, okay? So you have to sort of have a mindset that not only do you need to kind of continually think in 3 dimensions, but you also have to sort of think in reverse. Because what you take off, nobody will ever see, okay? So I got a slide that will explain that a little bit better, but there's really 2 kinds of, old style art. And when it comes to wood carving, one is whittling, okay? And it's kind of got a bad connotation. The guy sitting in front of the barber shop kind of doing, whatever. There's some pretty good whittlers out there. There's kind of a folk art tradition of whittling in the Ozarks and also in the Appalachians, and that actually kept a lot of people fed during the Depression. And they would make things for tourism or whatever. But that dates back to quite a long time ago. And what that really means is that you can have a really sophisticated set of tools and you're still whittling. Because whittling by definition to a carver is any time that your blade is sharp along a side. Okay, so it's the sides that are sharpened. So like a knife, a pocket knife would be the simplest. But there are people who carve and whittle with curved and all kinds of super specialty knives that are, you know, quite expensive actually, and wonderful steel. And even surgical scalpels. So, and they can be quite detailed. It's very sophisticated, or can be. So it's kind of got a bad rap, you know, as being the less sophisticated in a way. And then the other kind is the way I do, and that is with a gouge. And the gouge can be, it's always sharpened on the end, and it can be propelled, if you will, by two ways. You can push it, or you can hit it. And the kind that I do most of the time is I hit it, so it's mallet and gouge. When I start getting close to the end of something, then I kind of shift to smaller gouges that are specialty, so they may have a V in them. I actually have some that have square sides or 90-degree sides, so that I can clean out areas that look like a box. I have various different kind of U's, if you will. So, you know, start going for a little bit more specialty. I have some that have spoons so that I can get a little like of a bowl shape with things. But I don't usually, you know, resort to those until I get toward the end. And you won't see me do any of that if you come out to the marsh and watch me. And the reason is simple. The apparatus that I've created, the bench that I can sit at and carve, has a clamping system, but not nearly as good as the one I have at home. So you'll see the objects that I'm working on will slide a little bit, even though I've got them friction stopped. And I can't do detail work. I also can't do detail work without concentrating. I mean, nobody wants to put in 15 hours or 20 hours on an object, and then, you know, we'll just use a duck decoy, although I don't do duck decoys. But, you know, and, you know, as a detail, you're talking to somebody and you put the eyes in the front of the head. You know, that just ruined 15, 20 hours worth of your work. And I use that because when I first started carving, my father-in-law collected duck decoys, and that's all he wanted for Christmas for me for like 3 or 4 years. And indeed, I made him a duck decoy, the only one I've ever made, and he still has it. He's 93, he's out at Georgetown now. And I got really close to the end. I was pretty happy with it, and I decided to do something from memory, put the eyes in. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Looked at people, and people's eyes are in the front, so it has 2 eyes looking forward. It is horrible. But I finished it a couple of days before Christmas, and I was stuck. And now he brings it out anytime he wants to keep me having a thing to do. Yeah, I don't want to digress too much, but for those of you that have lived in Fort Wayne for a long, long, long period of time, you'll know that before Northrop won their state basketball champion back in '74, the previous one from Fort Wayne was Central High School. My dad was the manager of that team. Yeah, with Bobby Melton, who ended up being a Globetrotter. Yeah. Anyway, because they were allowed to put, 12 people on the roster, he stuck the manager on it too. He never played a minute of any of the games, anything. But he has a state championship ring from Indiana. So anytime when my brother and I, started feeling a little bit haughty about our athletic accomplishments, we would find that ring just sitting out on the counter. No words were ever said, but it's kind of like my duck. You don't need to. Message received. Okay. Next. All right, so this is a slide that I borrowed from the very first talk because I don't know how else to say it. If you do any kind of art, I think these are all good ideas, but certainly with carving and subtractive art, and that is, make the stuff that you know about. It makes it a whole lot easier. If I knew wit about ducks, I wouldn't have put eyes in the front of his head, right? Okay, I didn't, and I still don't. Use sharp tools. The two I brought today, I got to the marsh yesterday about 6 a.m. because I've been love watching the sunrise there. I did it this morning, and incidentally, since you're talking a little about astronomical things, Venus is rising right now, and today there wasn't any moon out at all. Yesterday was just a sliver, but it was actually gorgeous with the fog. And incidentally, I'm on a fourth floor room right now in 402, and every morning I can look out and see that fog on the ponds over by 69. It's really cool. But Venus is really, really bright in the sky, and I think she'll be there for a little while yet. So I've been sharpening my tools as I've been watching the sunrise. And it's a good habit to get in. Unfortunately, I'll break it when I go home. I'm not getting up that early. But I don't sharpen my tools nearly as much as I probably ought to. But usually, after I'm done with them, sharpening, I can literally do that, shave your arm with it. But since I'm carving every day out here, I haven't been testing because I thought that would be really crass that I'd have one arm with no hair and the other arm. Anyway, some advice that I got early on from a really great carver that I respect down in Bahamas. He told me, be bold. You know, don't be timid when you're with wood. It's not going to hurt you. Just go out there and whap at it. And then he said, and I didn't quite get it at first, you know, carve from the wood, not on it. And I can spot a novice carver or a novice subtractive artist. It doesn't have to be wood. It could be any medium that you take away stuff from almost instantly. And it's because they are timid. And ultimately, you can still see what they started with. You know it's a block, you know it's a branch, you know it's a log, whatever, because it still has that general form. And so they put whatever they were trying to carve, you know, on top of that instead of going really deep into the wood. And you know, somebody who's fairly accomplished, you shouldn't be able to recognize what the original shape was. You might have a feeling that, oh, well, that's kind of cylindrical. You know, I wonder if they started with a log or whatever. Keep moving it so that you change perspective. Another problem that a lot of people have is that they get so enamored with some part of the carving that they're doing that they want to get to the detail work and they get it all the way down and then realize they have to blend that in with some other part of it, especially if you're carving in complete 3 dimensions and in the round. And that's a really tough thing. So you've got to keep moving it constantly. And again, you don't have to stay out on the marsh very long watching me. And you'll see about every 15 minutes, I will move. Sometimes flipping it completely over, sometimes. And it's so that I can build the whole thing down to where I ultimately want it to be. I make mistakes all the time. Hopefully you don't recognize them because I can change the form a lot. But I used to take my daughter down to the Indiana State Fair. I bet a lot of you guys have been down there. And that Family Life building, they always have the Indianapolis Carvers Guild down there. So of course, I like to go down and you know, chat with them or just see what they're doing. And almost every year, there's one guy down there, and I'm sure he's really a nice person. And I've never talked with him, but I've heard him say this almost every time, because you get the same questions over and over again. Well, what do you do if you break something? And he's, well, I burn it, throw it away. And I'm thinking, crap, you know. I'm calling the BS card right now, as my grandkids like to say. I'll tell you right up front, one of my favorite friends is named Elmer. And their last name is Wood Glue. You know, if I break something, I can glue it and then I'll recarve it, and you'll never know it. I promise you'll never know it. But if you don't push the wood or any medium to its limits, how are you going to know what its limits are? And I brought one leaf. I've made hundreds now, because I made a mosaic of 150 leaves, all different woods and all different leaves, and so some with pine cones, and some with, you know, their nuts or their helicopters for maples and that kind of stuff. And put them all on a wall, all mix and match however you want. And they all have the stem, and it's completely free. There's nothing underneath it or whatever. That's a real challenge with a gouge. And did I break a couple? Will you know it? I hope not. I don't think so. But you have to push it to see how thin you can go. I mean, who wants a real thick stem on a leaf? It just looks unnatural. I'm trying to get it so it looks good. So, you know, don't be afraid. And then, you know, you see the rest. It's kind of why God made glue, is so that we can make mistakes. All right, next. All right, you know, this is the part I'm trying to make. And some of the more famous subtractive art pieces in the U.S. are both in the same, you know, vicinity. And some of you might have gone out and seen Mount Rushmore. Some of you probably, if you were out there, at least got a glimpse of Crazy Horse Mountain. So those guys are taking whole mountains and taking away material, a lot of material, to the point where I've been watching them do Crazy Horse Mountain since I was an undergraduate, you know, 45 years ago, and I still go, aren't they making any progress at all? But they are. I mean, they're taking tons and tons and tons of material off. And the reason they're going so slow is pretty simple. They don't take a penny from the government, which I think is kind of admirable. It's all done by funding of people that come in and whatever. So, and they also are not contracting it all out. It's being done by the Korchuk-Julkowski family. He's gone. He actually helped Gutzon Borglum make Mount Rushmore. So it's kind of a neat heritage, but it's his grandson and granddaughter who are the principal carvers right now of that mountainside. And that's really neat. And then, you know, perhaps maybe I think one of the most gorgeous, beautiful pieces in the world, the Pietà. And that too, the one in the middle there, is a subtractive piece. And then I just threw one in to fool you. That's Rodin's Thinker, of course. And that's not, okay? But from a person looking at it, you don't really know, right? You can't tell whether it's a subtractive piece or an additive piece. But Rodin, if you knew any of the history of the Thinker and any of his pieces, he made several studies on them, and even when he went from the small ones to the full-sized versions, he made changes constantly. So once he had something done, if he didn't like it, he just took out his torch, you know, and cut that piece off and moved it a little bit to the left or right, re-welded it, and then got his grinder out. Not quite so crude as that, but basically that's it. Next. All right, so this is the last kind of educational slide, I think. I don't really know. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, I do folk art, and folk art's really, really hard to define. Allie has a degree in art therapy. My two daughters both have degrees in art. One of them 4 degrees in art, and she teaches at Columbus College of Art and Design. So I'm constantly, you know, asking, all right, so help me define. And she agrees, what I do is folk art. And I said, well, how do you define that and differentiate that between fine art? And she said, well, the best thing I can tell you, and you can relate to this, is the same way the Supreme Court decided on how to determine pornography from art. They know it when they see it. And so mine is definitely folk art. But a very quick story. The very first public exhibit I ever did was at Roanoke 13 years ago. And a former student conned me into doing a presentation at the Arts Renaissance in Roanoke. So I did, and I had to borrow all kinds of stuff because I didn't sell anything prior to that. I just gave it away. And so I begged my parents and, you know, cousins and everybody, give it back for a day. And I had it out there, and these 2 really wonderful ladies, probably in their mid-70s, came by and said, oh, I love your stuff. I go, oh, that's nice, thank you, you're very kind. And then they stepped back, and some more people came up, and I wasn't supposed to hear what they said, but I did. And one said to the other, "Oh, I really do love that folk art style." And the other one said, "I think that's because that's all the better he can do." Now, I shouldn't have been offended because they liked it, okay? But I was, and I went into a funk. And so for the next 2 months, I carved 4 classical nudes, just to prove to myself I could do it. Now, I'd already carved, about 10 years prior to that, 1, just to see if I could. And I wasn't really happy with the results. It kind of looked awfully Picasso-esque, Depending on the angle you looked at it, but no. And actually, the person who ended up buying it even said, "I love the Picasso-esque looking." And I go, "Good, buy it."